First, I wanted to refer to a Kairut that was read last time, one that had to do with the tango being a rough dance with a whole lot of give and take and push and shove. And it ended up with the perhaps rhetorical question that says, what is it that people do every day in life that is not unlike the tango? And if you recall, the other reader then says, does the answer begin with an L? And I should have let it go at that, but I did want to point out that the answer is not the labada. Just in case any of you got confused. In fact, there's some reports out now that there is no such actual dance as a lambada, that was all a marketing ploy, again. Not at all unlike, well, Christianity or Hubert Humphrey. Right? Don't any Christian Democrats write me. Attempting as best we can to pick up where we left off. If you recall, last time we were taping, the general area where we were had to do with, I was referring back to a Kairut that says one way to work problems into some sort of manageable scheme of things is to force them to match up with solutions that you already have. And in a fit of something or other, I said that we would discuss A through 4, A through D. And if you also recall, yes I do, we had gotten through 2 of them, which would bring us somewhere around, what, F or B, no C. Bring you up to date. You recall number A under that. Isn't it nice that our viewing audience has such an extreme sense of humor? And somebody over here said, don't you hope? I think the term is wish. No, you're right, hope. We had gotten through the first 2, which would bring us down to B, C. But if you recall, A, I mentioned, we put in this kind of question, might there be a collateral connection between acts and facts and problems and solutions? And we had gotten to B, which went something like, if solutions can cure or solve problems, then might facts be able to, in some way, cure acts? Or the ever popular vice versa, and or vice versa. So that brings us up to C. And we will call that one this, that which would be perhaps the preeminent source of contemporary man's problems, acts or facts. Just think a good contemporary, everyday, up to date, just like you people. I can see you right there, you decent, good folk, intelligent at that. What might be, look at that on the basis of our little ephemeral sketch of man being capable of acts and facts from another view, a more complex view, able to operate via the medium of man, then what might be on that basis the source of man's problems? Would it be the acts or the facts? Are we sure that we want to even fool with that? Well, there is no doubt, to make it, some of this I was going to leave because we could have numbered much more than A through 17. It is a worthwhile mapping. I was assuming that you would agree, if you get an intellectual grip on it at all, of everything being divided up into acts and facts. And could you see that you could look at, on that basis, that there could be 2 ways to look at the sources of man, so-called. Of course, we always have to wiggle our fingers because we're part of the Beaver Patrol. Oh, quotes, is to ask yourself, on the basis of man being able to either and are capable of acts and facts, what might be the source of problems? Just what everybody calls problems, not what I call problems, but just take the full buffet of what humanity has always called problems would they be on the basis? Would the source be arriving from acts or facts? Now, looked at from that view, of course, you can see, to give you some little hint, certain acts you could regard as being a possible base of problems. Being hungry, being extremely cold, being extremely hot, being extremely ugly. No, never mind that one. Being extremely, the big H. They don't want me to say that on camera. Being extremely, feeling extremely romantic and having no one immediately to return your amorous emotions. See, I didn't say horny. Oh. So you could look, certainly, and of course, the ever popular death, if you want to get down to it. But then consider that man is no longer just this primary creature. He is no longer just operating on that nonverbal basis of acts. I mean, you're behind in your taxes, behind in your rent. You now have some sort of, shall we call it, certain difficulty that penicillin apparently just won't even affect anymore in your case. All sorts of things that would not seem to be on the basis of primary life or death, fight or flee basis. So no one today, no intellectual, reasonable person would deny that ordinary, what we're calling secondary life, secondary existence, could certainly have its own share of problems. But the question was, what might be the preeminent source? Is there some way to identify it? Referring you back to how we started the heading of asking or pointing out that one way that a man might be able to handle the so-called problems. The beginning theorem, of course, not making any distinction, but to handle problems is to force them to match up, to align themselves in some way with solutions you already have. The tacit part of that, I assume you already put together, is that men have solutions. You just never thought about it in that way. But you've got solutions you never used. You don't think about it? Well, notice how easy. Got nothing to do with morality, got nothing to do with psychology. It just sounds this way. It's the energy behind it. But notice, everyone can see quite easily the folly, the problems, the missteps of other people. Not only be able to see it, I mean, we all can. If you're alive and breathing, you not only can foretell the weather, but you can see other people's problems. And being the intellectual sort that you are, I'm sure, if you can see the problem, it's just like that. You see exactly what the solution is. I mean, to put it very crudely, if not succinctly, is you see other people's problems, and what they should do is stop. So it's not that you do not have solutions. I'm just trying to give you kind of side door hints. It's not that you have no solutions. So in case the number C struck you as being somewhat weirder than usual or more oblique, is ask, the whole basis of, is it possible that there would be some validity in forcing, to quote, problems that you might confront into solutions you already have. And I did not, when we presented this originally, even insist that there were solutions you had that you'd never used, or you had solutions that could be matched up with problems that had not been used, or else lined up with problems. They may have been lined up before the other problems, but perhaps with problems that they had never been lined up with before. And if in case any of you even followed that, but in case you thought, well, no, I don't have any, that is why I made you laugh by pointing out that you certainly see other people's problems. Usually they'll admit it, but even if they don't, those that are keen of eye, and the last time I counted was somewhere around 15 billion people on this planet, were very keen of eye, that you can see other people's problems, and if they but had the intelligence, they would turn around to you as soon as you showed up, came in their same hemisphere, and say, would you please tell me the solution? And so you already know the solution to many people's problems. Am I correct? Sure. So not your problems. I know you're humble, and I know that somewhere, those of you that are Christian or Jewish or men or women, one of those religions, that somewhere you mutter under your breath on a warm day, their problems, dare but for the sake of somebody go I. You're just lucky that that's not your problem. But it's also fortunate in a way that's never been used that you happen to see how that could be cured. You didn't lose your place. So you have more. You just never thought about it. Your old building site, regular old neural activity, it has more solutions, more cures to mortal ills and problems than you have ever used. So why let them just sit there? Why not take problems as they arise and force them to match up with some solution you already have? Then you're back to what we're asking of number C. All right, number 3, if you want that one, is what might be the preeminent source, the predominant source of man's problems. Would it be coming from the area of acts or facts? Those of you that are really keen of memory, if not I, would notice that the way we're mapping this, that all facts must proceed from acts. Facts follow acts, and so you could always say, from that kind of view, that the source of all problems have got to be acts. But then you're trying to get too sharp, because you have to go ahead and consider it. That is not the way the ordinary intellect looks at it. That is not the way it's experienced. People do not experience at any routine human level that what they're going through on a secondary level, personality crisis, any sort of civilized problem, anything just at all more sophisticated, more complex, and either starving, freezing, or hornying to death, than anything a little more schematic than that falls within the purview, as we're describing, of secondary problems. Would fall within what we're calling now facts. So then ask yourself, from that view, which would be the primary source, the main distributor in your local area, which is your brain? What would be the main distributor of problems? Would it be acts? Would it be facts? And in a listing from A to D, this being D, then I think I can say without great fear of contradiction, and now to the final one. It's referring to the number C we just did. That is, what might be the preeminent source of man's problems, acts or facts? The D part of all of this is as follows. Are you sure you could tell the difference? Now, I know I just did for you verbally, but are you sure, operationally, being in it, could you tell the difference? Can you tell the difference? That's D, little I. How about D, little double I, under that? Little I, can you tell the difference? Double little I, are you sure it would make any difference? Are you? Since I made up the list, I guess I could. How about slip in? Should we slip in an E or a triple little I? Yeah, we should. And I'll leave it to you to figure out what it was. And neural areas that would be beyond the ordinary grasp of 3D gravity and other forms of seriousness. What if, referring back to another Kairoot from the last night or so that we were taping, what if, you recall this one, that went anything can explain / solve. I think the original one, anything can explain everything else. And of course the all-important vice versa. But from a more seditious, fresh way of looking at that kind of comment, put it this way, that if you did that from a revolutionary kind of approach, then you would have nothing to gain and everything to lose. Which I did not mean that to frighten the children who already knew the real version. Of course, you know the real city truism is the opposite of that, of people saying that they have everything to gain and nothing to lose. But can you see any connection between the idea that anything might explain everything else and vice versa, from there to having a fresh way and revolutionary way of thinking whereby such a person would have nothing to gain and everything to lose? Besides the apparent non sequitur nature, perhaps, of it verbally, consider it this way, that independent, non-polarized thinking would have nothing to gain in its approach if it was trying to work along the lines that we started this paragraph out with, on the possibility that anything might explain everything else, and vice versa. But that's bad enough to start with. So let's just take the first part. Can you at all see any neural connection on the level of energy, if not words immediately, between anything might, can explain everything else, and if you were thinking in a non-polarized, in a new way, that you would have, in a sense, nothing to gain, on the basis that you would be running up no new cost for the new thoughts? Because if you recall, we already established, all of you voted and you agreed, that there is a cost at the old building site, at the neural area in which the brain normally operates. All new information in some way, and I'm not going to stop and try to go into it in a three-dimensional, tangible, physiological way, because I know that from a certain view at the city, at ordinary level, this is not true, but it is more manifoldly correct, that new information, in a sense, always replaces something else. That there is only, with an ordinary person's mental operations, a certain, like handful of marbles, certain square millimeter or many millimeter area of the brain that will ever be staked out and used. And when you get new information, it replaces something. And on that basis, this kind of independent, non-polarized thought, you would be having nothing to gain and everything to lose. But you'd be having nothing to gain on the basis that it had not cost you anything. Because that's why I keep trying to get you to consider my little picture of a whole new building, a whole new neural building site. That it's not just going back at one's ordinary level, whatever it was, and it doesn't matter, of education, etc. Assuming that you've got a working number of little gray cells, that at that level, it is not, for any sort of revolutionary thought, it's not simply a rearranging of information. It's, of course, why you have the historical continuing ideas of esoteric hidden information and all that stuff, because it is just a beautiful, not just metaphorical, it is symbolic idea that there's secret books somewhere, there's some group somewhere, there's a cave somewhere, the gods came down in a flying teacup and left it, but it's somewhere so far removed, it is not in the hallowed halls of academia. It's not in Harvard, it's not in Notre Dame, it is not in the Louvre. It is simply a whole other area. Is, I would suggest to you, how these little tales came about of there being hidden information, or somebody from other planets, or the gods sent down their sons or their brother-in-law, and they left the information, but they didn't just leave it. It's not laying out in churches, it's not laying out at Harvard, it's hidden somewhere. It's over in caves, it's under the water. Why? What does that actually represent? Well, I'm suggesting to you that if that were not true, if there were, or what that represents is a very crude fashion of what I'm saying, is that the energy running the ordinary intellect, when it reaches, we get metaphorical, when it reaches the limits of Gibraltar pre-Columbus, It is like the fence running around the brain, the mind that we've talked about before. The electric fence, and you tell the fence you're limited in what you can do, and electricity runs around the perimeter of the fence and comes back and says you're wrong. My scope is infinite. I can run and never be stopped. I have surveyed all of my domain, and you are wrong. There are no fences. I was cut nowhere. I did not ground out. I looked around, and there are no inhibitors. There are no barriers. I can think whatever I want, and you're wrong. That is the sort of thing I'm trying to imply with this kind of picture, that real new independent thought to tort and twist the old idea that people would normally say that by learning something new, or by doing something new, you have everything to gain and nothing to lose. And I reversed it, of course, and said nothing to gain and everything to lose. The nothing to gain is at the old building site, the old fence, where the intellect now operates. There is simply nothing else to be done. You can rearrange the puzzle. You can take out pieces and to really begin to whip up and beat up on metaphors and similes, which they don't care, they can't fight back. Oh, God. Oh. You can take the puzzle you got and you can bite off a piece and you can try to make the puzzle come out another way. That originally your little puzzle looked like a tree by a babbling brook or bubbling brack. And you can think, well, I'm going to rearrange my information, and you begin as a kid would to bite off pieces here and there and jam it together to where it no longer looks like a nice tree by a bubbling brook. It now looks like God knows what, but at least it looks different. Now you can do that, but the pieces of the puzzle at the old neural building site are limited. So when I say that in a certain way independent, non-polarized thinking would be in line with the twisting of that old truism and saying that you've got nothing to gain, you're running up no new cost. You're not having to replace information, which you can't, but you're not even wasting your time on that kind of mood activity that I am going to refurbish some of my thoughts. I will improve them. I will correct them. I will have them aligned. Well, in a sense, without being sarcastic toward ordinary life, because everyone's been there. People do try that. People try that, and they find themselves and others to be admirably, or find themselves to be engaged in admirable activities, that I am trying to improve myself. But all you can do is rearrange the pieces of the puzzle. In that case, from that view, it is costing nothing. Except ordinary people, remember, it's costing everything. It costs, an ordinary man would say, it costs a hell of a lot. I could be at home with my family. I could be out doing the labanda. I could be out having fun, but no. In the attempt to improve myself, here I am at night school, studying animal husbandry and cake decorating. I want to do better in life. It is a rearrangement of the energy that the person has available, and it ends up, it is a rearrangement from a revolutionary view, it is a rearrangement of what everyone has here. But it is not an improvement. It is not an expansion. The person cannot think. A person cannot neuralize in any way outside the realm of, even if they gain a PhD in animal husbandry, if there was such. They have simply rearranged what they had, but it has not been expanded. But in a more complex view, the revolutionist has nothing to gain by doing this, because he is not even fooling with the old building site. He is not even attempting to grow a new crop. He's not attempting to cut down one crop and grow another. Or he's not attempting to fall into the specious belief that not only am I growing a new crop, but I am cultivating new territory. The building site, under all ordinary conditions, cannot be expanded. Therefore, whatever one has to explain what one understands, that's it. And where we started this paragraph of the possibility that anything can explain everything else is not true at the ordinary level. At the ordinary level, anything can only explain anything. Or if you can dig this. Anything, everything can only explain everything else. It is only at the ordinary level that you've got 2 plus 2 equals 4. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can make it 3 plus 1 equals 4. And you do the rest, don't make me do it, but you can go on with an infinite enough variety using the ever popular decimals that you can run out what will amount to, in a lifetime, an operational amount of infinity. Well, you understand. 3.9 plus 0.1 equals 4. And you keep on and on and on, and so at the ordinary level you can think, I'm getting somewhere. I started out juggling grapefruits, and now I'm juggling, hand grenades, or oranges, or 2 oranges and 1 hand grenade, or 1 hand grenade and 2 cherries, or 1 cherry and 2 bald heads. It does not change, though. But ordinary people, of course, and everyone's been there, you believe it does change. It takes great effort for me to take on 2 jobs, for me to go to night school. From a revolutionary view, it is not so, because ordinary intelligence says that you have something to gain. And all you're doing is reshuffling the cards. All you're doing is moving the pieces about on the Monopoly board. And nothing extraordinary has happened. Contrary to the part of mangling the old truism was the other part of saying that the revolutionists from doing this would not only have nothing to gain and everything to lose. The having nothing to lose would be like the widespread, if not total, abandonment of your old building site. So not only by attempting to think independently, whatever that is, to be a neuro-revolutionist, whatever that is, you would not only have nothing to gain, but everything to lose. That you would be abandoning everything that you know, everything that's... Just put in as many blanks as you want to and you fill them in. You have got to give up everything you know. That's too harsh. Everything to lose. That you may lose everything you know. Not forget. May lose everything you know, everything you believe, everything else that everybody else believes, all the complaints you have, all the seriousness you have. It's like everything that you've got back at the old homestead, it's gone. Except, of course, that 3-dimensionally this will not fly, because it's not like you go nuts, is it? It's not that it's just a whole new world, or, wait a minute, does this have anything to do with those kind of metaphorical, allegorical tales and ideas in all the world's religions about being reborn? And now I'm a new person. There's a basis for that, of course. But it's not like I'm now a new person and the old person's behind me. It's more like the old person was my partner. I are a Siamese twin. I have always been, and I didn't realize it. I thought I had a conscious and a subconscious mind, or I thought I had a godly part and an ungodly part. Now you're a Siamese twin-o. That is, you're an outlet for polarized energy. I always thought I was thinking. Yeah, I know. I always thought you meant this thing about having a partner and all that stuff. I thought you meant that metaphorically. I know you did. It comes as a great, shall we say, I hate to steal from the Bible, but hell, they stole it, a revelation to suddenly realize, wait a minute, all my life, I thought I've been thinking. That's for children. Thinking? No. Thinking you're thinking. That sort of thing. So the last part, or the second part that I was pulling out of the Old Testament that we had mangled, is it is having not only nothing to gain, that is, it is no improvement, it is no what amounts to a specious, not even spurious, much better than that, a specious enlargement of what you know. Instead of saying, by improving my mind, by going back to school, I have everything to gain. That is a specious expansion to a revolutionist. So instead of dealing with that, instead of spending your energy on that, which actually turns out, from a more subversive view, that it being approaches that ends up with nothing to gain. And then, of course, the follow-up of that, still mangled, thwarted, is everything to lose. It is the loss of your permanent residency at the old building site. I knew that'd be clear enough. How about one more that came from a Kairu to Night or Sour Gold that went something like this: that the city, for whatever reason, up and said, I can speak to you with enthusiasm or with accuracy, but not with both. Semicolon. For that, you must look elsewhere. Taking the city, of course, as a verbal symbol for normal, ordinary, established, sane thinking processes into which everyone is born. Everyone that turns out to be, what is it? Sane. Just according to city standards, to life standards. Then what is it through that kind of idea that life, the genetic line of succession in life, what is it saying? What is admitting? Is it admitting through such ideas to man? If you took a kind, or attempted to take a kind of very practical, useful approach toward this, then ask yourself, information that you seem to have. Right now, let's not split up the pennies over it. Whether it seems to be coming from you, whether is in some way intuitive, whether it seems to be coming from others, whether it seems to be institutional, whether it seems to be some sort of vague, just common wisdom. Ask yourself this, just in anything is subject to this, to ask yourself, is this piece of information, this piece of wisdom, this piece of insight, does it seem to be based on a matter of enthusiasm? Not just from if the source is apparently out there, or if it's apparently in you, but out there it might be easier for you to start there right quick. Does it seem to be on the basis of enthusiasm, which do not discount that, or you're missing it? Is the information seem to be based on enthusiasm about it, or is it in some way based on accuracy? Now, it's only that which you are already wired up to be interested in, or conversely, only that in which you seem to be interested, that you would have enough interest to even ponder the question. That is, if you didn't have any interest in it, I think I'm safe in saying this, you wouldn't have any interest in it. But if you do, and you suddenly hear information, and I gave you the full spectrum, you should be well long enough that it doesn't matter whether it apparently came from in here. Yes, I've been thinking, my subconscious, we just covered that. Or else, I just heard it, I just read it, or it seemed to come to me in a dream. Or it just seemed to be, I just knew it. All right. Whatever it is, though, is the basis of it, any piece of what seems to be really useful information or important information to you. Has it been served up on the basis of enthusiasm or on the basis of accuracy? Now, I could give you synonyms looking at some of the beige faces I'm seeing. But may I speak for all of us up here, for the whole team, and say that we don't want to. We could, but just take it. Since we already stole it from the Kairos, that the city said to man, I can speak to you with enthusiasm or with accuracy, but not with both. For that you must look elsewhere. Now there's much behind those words. Enthusiasm. I'm not going to pull any synonyms, but enthusiasm. You can't live without it. You got no limbic system. You got no red circuits going. You got no heartbeat, and you certainly have got none of this. If you had no enthusiasm here, oh my God, you might as well be a Presbyterian with a Buick. Well, or the Pillsbury Doughboy. Consider all the possibilities. Any of you who are hearing this, you can even make it more interesting yourself, rather than me pulling out possible sub-headings or synonyms, operational synonyms for enthusiasm. Think about all the words that even possibly could be fitted as being synonymous with enthusiasm. And do it yourself. Because I suggest to you that this division, again, as arbitrary, as artificial as it is quite telling in a subversive way. That life is saying, the three-dimensional genetic line of succession coming out in man's mind is saying, I can send information, I can speak, it's said in the Kairoot to you, but you can also make it through you, because you end up, if it's speaking to you and you're interested, it's not going to stop there, because the mind, in the same way that the body is from the level of consciousness down, the mind is not only an acceptor of energy, you not only eat, you pass along to the planet. You process food. You do not, well, I assume you do. If you don't, you're in bad trouble. You're going to need to see your pharmacist. So you take in physical food and you transform it into something that somebody else, some other creature uses. Here, energy comes in and it gets transformed. There is an enthusiasm, though, about it, if it is the kind of energy that you take in. And there's no question now, anybody who is at all subversive. Because at the old building site, it's only there. It's only back at the old level that people want to wrestle, much less fight physically, over, wait a minute, why should you be interested in something like that? Anybody so dumb enough to collect stamps ought to whip your ass. Boy, you're a dumbo. Of course, I know they do it more seriously. They say, how dare somebody be a Christian when I'm a Jew? Or a Muslim, same thing, in case you hadn't noticed. I hate to break the news to some of you. And so it has to be of interest to you, and it's of no interest to anybody else. It's certainly of no interest to this kind of activity. What's of interest to you? That's why life made chocolate and vanilla. You know that, and Alaska and Rhode Island. And so whatever is of interest to you is of interest to you. So it is in that area at the old level that life will either, the energy it's sending that would appear to be interest in life, it's going to send the energy and talk to you, but on the basis, if you can see it, and it's very useful, I suggest, of looking at, it either strikes you at any particular time that the energy, the information, life talking to you talking to you, those of you still have a Freudian turn of ankle, mind, my subconscious, the collective subconscious, unconscious, and all of that. But it is the genetic line of succession. What am I thinking? What seems to be driving me right now? What is my interest? What is life saying to me? And you can see it's either on the basis, whatever it is, interests you. It's nobody's business. It's on the basis that it's speaking to you with enthusiasm or with accuracy. But life admitted in that Kairoot that it can't do both, or it doesn't do both. I mean, everybody says they don't do windows. I don't know. It means they can't. But the Kairoot life says that it's one or the other. Accuracy in the same way that I was suggesting something far more complex. And not just by my definition, as complex as you can use it. There is no particular limit. Behind the idea of enthusiasm is also with accuracy. Because that would seem to be now getting a little more focus into the predominantly intellectual, sophisticated world of a modern, sophisticated, intellectual person. It's not enough to be just enthusiastic. That may be enough for those dumbasses out there at a football game, or somebody all carried away by a brand new CD by Jane's Addiction. But accuracy. I guess that kind of falderoy for people to have fun and be enthused in life and go to rugby games, I guess maybe that has its place. Not in my neighborhood, of course. And so that's one thing, but accuracy is something else. By this Kairoot, yet something else. It is the other side of enthusiasm at a polarized level. And that the energy that comes into an ordinary person at the old building site, life said it in that Kairoot, that I can speak to you, to an ordinary man, either with enthusiasm, yay, team. What's the reason in that? I don't know any reason. Listen, vote for me, and you'll be real, real happy. I'm saying vote for me. And people think, by God, I think I will. And the guy's wife says, why? I don't know. So it's as though life is going to send energy that will appeal to an individual here and there. That is, that the energy will be taken in, used, transformed, and passed along. Remember, you don't just eat. You go to the restroom, most of you. So it is on the basis, though, that life is sending energy at a particular time to a particular person. That can change. But it's on the basis of enthusiasm. God, what spicy good food. Or it's on the basis of accuracy. What very reasoned dining. That in that Kairos, life is saying the energy, as it would seem, at the particular person's level, at their view, that the energy they're getting is as though life is speaking. And at any particular time, I can speak to you, I can send in energy, and it seems to cause enthusiasm, or else it seems to cause a feeling that this information is very accurate, very precise. But life in that Kairos says, I can't do both. Of course, life could be, in its magnanimous way, understands the limits of ordinary people hearing, and so life didn't say, I can do it, but you couldn't hear it. So that's just for those of you people that are now in the second grade instead of kindergarten. Life said, I can speak to you either with enthusiasm or with accuracy, but not with both. For that, you must look somewhere else. I guess we could end it. Remember that life says, I can speak to you either with enthusiasm or with accuracy, but not with both. For that, you must look elsewhere. I thought, might as well end it here. Let me ask you, on that basis, well, at least on that, you understand life is saying that there is somewhere else to look. I'm just going to leave it and say, guess where?